Okay, let's get everything up and running here first. Make sure it's working. I see people commenting. Can you guys hear me? I hope the audio looks like it's working. Let me know if you guys can hear me here. Let me post the link here and everything too. There we go. Audio is good. All right, sounds good. Can you guys see the weather station up and running there? I got the GoPro acting as a webcam pointed at my weather station here, the Davis. That's at the bottom left there. So on the right of that is the ultrasonic anemometer, and on the left is the 3-cup. Does it show up here when I'm pointing at it? Let's see. So it should be down here. I can't tell what I'm pointing at here, but anyway, yeah, the one on the right, the middle right, and the one in the center there is the ultrasonic anemometer. It's at the very top of that pole, as you can see up here. And then the one on the left is the 3-cup that's right there. So this is a really great wind reading I have at my house here. And so, yeah, just thought I'd throw that on there. The HUD, the heads-up display, that's right. And you can see where I've got the Tempest right here also, and I've got an AccuWeather ultrasonic anemometer as well. That's a 1-second reading, so it gives really high readings. I've also got my Tempest next to that, and I also have a Kestrel station. It's a prop, and it sits right here, and it's reading every 2.5 seconds, so that'll be reading for the Windstorm tonight too. You can see it's getting a little bit blustery out there, 23 miles an hour. Good evening, everybody out there. Yeah, this is on my house here. This Skywire setup actually goes 10 feet taller, but it looks like War of the Worlds, so I left it at 32 feet. It's plenty high as it is, and I don't want to attract too much attention from the neighbors because it does go up another pole. It does telescope up one more level there, and it looks kind of wild, so I left it there. And you can see it's got 8 guy wires connected to it. So those work out pretty well, and I've got it attached both to the roof and the side of the house here, so it's nice and stable. Terry Fratz is here. Ryan is here. I should have made Ryan here. Ryan is now a moderator. Any other moderators in here? Matthew Fab is in here. Federal Way, West Coast Weather is here. All right, we got 3 moderators already. Yeah, we already got 200 people in here. Impressive. Yeah, we got wind advisories out there if you guys haven't seen that yet. All the Puget Sound, it's borderline. They could have high wind warning up across maybe some of Bellingham and some of the San Juans, maybe right along the immediate waterway out over the islands. But the wind advisory will probably suffice. I mean, the big gusts, this shouldn't last that long, but Bellingham could get a 60-mile-per-hour gust out of this system here. Jonas Miller, onboard pulse Doppler radar. But yeah, for anybody just joining, you can see I got the AccuWeather ultrasonic, I got the Tempest, and I got the Davis at the top of the pole, and I got the Davis 3-cup there. And that is what's running here on the bottom left. You can see the ultrasonic anemometer for example, you see where that 23 miles per hour is. That is during the last 10 minutes. And that speed in the middle is also the ultrasonic. You can see it correlate with the one on the right middle. And the one on the left is the 3-cup at the top. If you guys are wondering here. So when you're watching that during the video here today. Yeah, it looks like it's kicking up out there already to the... And just south of the San Juans, or right on the San Juans there, straight to Georgia, coastal areas as well. Looks like some gusts probably getting up over 40 miles an hour, maybe up in the upper 30s there over the open water. And as you can see at my house, 23 miles per hour so far. I don't think the Willamette Valley is going to get a wind warning out of this. We can actually Let's just double check that here really quick. We'll go out to Oregon. And this is the latest HRRR. And you can see as we scroll through tomorrow morning, I mean, it's going to get blustery maybe around Portland, a little bit further south, some of the northwest coast of Oregon. But for the most part, the bigger winds are going to be up across the Puget Sound and some of the higher terrain. And across the Cascades there, Mount Hood area, ridge tops, going to get pretty gusty, but probably not wind advisory level. No. Garrett Hartung is here. 52 miles per hour at Smith Island. Awesome. And this is actually the latest HRRR, the high resolution. Actually, this is a 0-1, so let's look at this first. You can see some of these winds. I mean, look up towards Edmonds and Everett up there. You're looking at 50 plus, just over the Puget Sound there. The ferry runs going back and forth. Good thing it's happening early morning and overnight. That might impact some of the ferry runs. But look at Bellingham up there, 62 miles per hour. That's kind of crazy. A lot of mid-50s there showing up across Whidbey Island. And this is the big gust down here for Seattle and SeaTac as well. And you can see some 50-mile-per-hour gusts even in downtown. Let's actually see when that happens there. So that's about midnight. Midnight and 1 a.m. downtown Seattle is going to be howling out there. And look at some 50-mile-per-hour gusts along I-5, maybe between Olympia and Tacoma also, maybe McCord. And some of these gusts were coming up towards Des Moines here too. Redondo, Tacoma. You see 50 plus on the coast. Yeah, Tacoma Narrows down there also. It's going to be pretty breezy going across the bridge here tonight. Yeah, some good gusts on the Gig Harbor Peninsula out there as well. And this also doesn't take into account a lot of people, you know, I lived out here in some of Kent East Hill and whatnot, and some of the valleys. Really, this goes for anywhere across the Puget Sound. Some of us are wind sheltered here. So as you can see, along the water, the wind is strongest here, and that makes its way inland to some areas. And there's some areas of higher terrain where the wind is stronger, but there is a lot of wind sheltered areas. Some of the valleys out here, you know, sometimes Maple Valley, there's areas the lower elevations can get sheltered. Sometimes off to the east of Everett, Lake Stevens sometimes gets sheltered for some of these really strong south winds as well. So just kind of keep that in the back of the mind. You might not be seeing 50 mile per hour gusts even closer to the waterway here. Not everybody's going to see these gusts. Some places are sheltered. Sometimes you're on the backside of a hill, but sometimes you're on a hilltop and you get some stronger winds there as well. But just kind of keep that in mind. It's important to learn where you live. Oh, so did it show 45 on the... Here, let me update that. Is it Garrett saying it was pushed to 45 mile per hour gust out there for Portland on the HRRR? Let's see, back up a little bit here. Let's check it out. Oh yeah, the 01Z put some pretty good gusts here actually through some of the Willamette Valley here. Looks like east side maybe a little bit. In fact, let's take a closer look at that and we'll go to Portlandia here. Yeah, you could get that is an uptrend here for sure. Yeah, you go back to the 20Z run here and you can kind of see maybe up towards 40 miles an hour, upper 30s. And then you jump to the most recent 02. This one isn't going out far enough yet. We'll go back to 0. We'll go to 0Z and take a look at that, what it's saying. Yeah, even from the 0Z, the 01 was kind of an uptrend there, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, the Puget Sound Energy Outage Map. Yeah, that'll be a good one, too. Or I'll put that up here so I remember that later. So as you guys can see right now, we've got 27 people without power. See how that goes through the night tonight. Actually, let's look a little bit more before I dig into the future a little bit here. Let's go to... And the NAM, the 0Z NAM is now run. Yeah, not much difference here. Not quite as extreme in some places, the Euro, but still, you're looking at mid-40s, maybe 50 plus for some of the Seattle metro, the city proper. And Tacoma down there, 48. Olympia, 44. Yeah, this will probably be doing some tree damage, I would assume. There's still leaves on trees. Probably strip a lot of the remaining leaves off. 16Z run. That was the her as of this morning, 16Z. I'm assuming what you're saying there. I-5 405 North Junction. Yeah, it's going to be, you're going to be pushing 50 miles per hour for the exposed areas up there where I-5 meets 405. And Everett, it's been showing some pretty nasty gusts coming through there. Here's the her on, actually, no, this is the NAM on the 18Z. Let me see if this has been updated. What's going on here? Okay, there we go. So yeah, the NAM showing 45 for SeaTac. That's the most recent 0Z run. The her was actually showing 47. That was 01. Let's see if the 02 is loaded here yet. Nope. But look at Bellingham. Look at the her, the 01Z her for Bellingham, lower 60s. That's kind of ridiculous. This would, if this verifies, that would require, you know, that's high wind warning stuff. That's getting gust 58 mile per hour plus is high wind warning. And this is the NAM 18Z for Everett. Let's update that. It had 54 miles per hour. It dropped down a little bit. 52 still quite strong. And this goes, that's going to wake some people up. That'd be at what, 2, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. this morning. Looks like you got 27 mile per hour gust outside too. Just hit 27. Should be showing up here in the screen in a second. There it goes, 27. Yeah, it's a little bit of a delay. It's about a 10-second delay between what I'm seeing here on what you guys see about 10 seconds after I do. So yeah, we had just hit 27 here at my house. And the her for Everett, you can see some mid-50 gusts showing up somewhere between 1 and 5 a.m. or so. Garrett says advisory criteria for Portland forecast office: sustained winds 30-39 for over 1 hour and or frequent gusts 45-57 for any duration. What do they mean by frequent I wonder what they mean by that. If you have just a few gusts, if you're peaking out at 45 just for maybe an hour, is that enough for wind advisory? They still don't have anything out that I see here for Portland. Nope. They do have wind advisories out for Eastern Washington here as well. Let's go ahead and click on Spokane here and see what they're calling the highest gust here. Yeah, Covington has some areas that can be kind of sheltered out there as well. Gust of 50 for Spokane. And here was the latest National Weather Service map. They put this out just after noon, but you can see those winds out there as well. They might be lowballing Everett a little bit there, but you can kind of see those big winds. Friday Harbor, maybe a little bit of a lowball there also. Bellingham, probably somewhat accurate. Seattle, probably accurate there also. This is tonight. Yes, tonight and early tomorrow morning. So yeah, we have 28 miles per hour here now. We got 28 as the high peak. That's the ultrasonic anemometer on the right, and the 3 cup is on the left there. And I'd have to go upstairs to see the AccuWeather one that has 1 second readings. Oh, look at that. The HER's been showing this a little bit as well. If you watch SeaTac, there's SeaTac there 44. There's Boeing Field at 45. And I believe this is Renton at 45 here. And you can see Everett at 54. If we go into 5 a.m., 6 a.m., you can see that 50 mile per hour gust kind of getting up right towards SeaTac there. And that's not very far from where I live here as well. So that's pretty close to a 50 mile per hour gust there for SeaTac showing up. And check this out. I mean, if the HER is right, that's nasty. Those are powerful gusts. That will do damage. There will be power outages around the Tacoma area, I-5 corridor. I mean, you're talking about 52 miles per hour. That's a big time wind. So this low is a little bit atypical for what our big storms are. And I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. Let me actually, where did I stash that? So I'm going to update that. This is the 18Z European model. Actually, we'll just do this. No, we're going to have to go out a little bit wider. So we'll go to Oceanic and we'll go to Gulf of Alaska. And this is the 18Z European. Let's do the control so we can get a little bit further out. Are we on it? We are. And then, so you can see where the parent low is. The parent low is way up towards Southeast Alaska. You're talking about Yakutat, Cordova up here, 971 millibar low. But then you've got kind of the secondary low kind of moving inland here, this 985 millibar low. And that's kind of what's really packing that gradient here. So it seems like the parent low is far away, but you've got a nasty gradient all the way down. And it could potentially, like we saw in some of the HRRR runs, impact Portland as well. But yeah, so it's not like we're looking at a low pressure moving into Vancouver Island itself. That's something we may be dealing with here over the next week or so, though. Did you guys see the 12Z European? Oh, we didn't go over that this morning, but that is the 18Z there. If you look at the 12Z here, I don't know how far I can zoom in on that. I'm not going to mess it up too much here, but there was a 70 mile per hour gust that showed up in the control run. It's still a full, 10 days out. But it's something that's been showing up kind of in the European run from time to time as well. So it's something I'm going to go over in a little bit here. Yeah, if you guys are just joining, that thing on the bottom left is my display of my weather station, my Davis. And this is my setup here. And this goes like 32 feet off my roof. It's got guy wires holding it down. I've got the Tempest up there as well. I've got my AccuWeather here one. And then I've got the 3-cup anemometer and I've got the ultrasonic at the very top. And the reading on the right, they got 28 miles per hour is the one on the top. The one that hit 24 is the 3-cup there. And it's weird watching the anemometers battle. Sometimes their wind speeds, they don't always correlate that well. Reading some of the chats here. Yeah, I don't know if, am I on Seattle here? I don't know. I believe I am. Yeah. So yeah, some of the HRRR runs have been showing some pretty gusty winds coming across Vashon, out across some of the sound toward Des Moines and SeaTac there as well. And you can see, widespread 50 plus, 55 plus there across a lot of Vashon, San Juan Islands, Bellingham area. I mean, Bellingham's been kind of the bullseye here across the lower elevations of Western Washington. John Didier, thank you very much for your generosity, sir. Yeah, you see it. So we just hit 29 miles per hour there on the ultrasonic. So it's starting to get windy out there. 29 is starting to get, you'll start to hear that outside and the trees will start to go nuts. And you can see the 3-cup hit 26 miles per hour there as well. And you kind of see that south-southeast component to the wind there. You see 22, 16 bouncing back and forth there. So yeah, we just talked about that pressure here. It's not that typical of a windstorm here. We've got the strong gradient and everything, but look at the parent low is actually out here over just south of southern Alaska here, southeast Alaska, 971 millibar low. But you can see you've got this strong pressure gradient. As you can see, this 985 millibar low kind of moved through northern British Columbia and the strong pressure gradient here. Because you can see over the interior of British Columbia, I mean, you're looking at what? A 999 millibar low. That's nothing that impressive overall speaking. Just hit 30 there on the ultrasonic. So yeah, it's definitely picking up here in Normandy Park. Yeah, there's a risk of thunderstorms. If we saw, let me go ahead and play this out. In fact, you guys see we got lightning strikes there to the right on the coastline there. Let me update this here. You You see lightning flashes here, and this is going to propagate down the coastline. There's a lightning potential. There's some lightning potential here as we go through the day tomorrow too, as this colder air starts to spread over the area. But the strongest grading is still back in here, and you can kind of see that on the Windy app, how powerful these winds are out here. So we're just getting started here across much of the area. And this is going to be picking up as we go through tonight, big time. Yeah, you know, you might laugh at this, but we picked this location here in Normandy Park. I picked it because of the wind run. That's one of the main reasons why we bought this house that we live in now, is because of the exceptional wind run. You can see the view down. I can see Des Moines off to my south across the sound. I can see Vashon Island. I can see the Olympic Mountains and everything. And this is one of the main reasons why we bought this home, is because of this wind run. And then I got this extensive anemometer setup going on now. And a lot of times I'll exceed wind gusts at SeaTac, which is actually a pretty windy location. You got the airport. It's at 410 feet or so, and it's got a really nice weather station there, and I will outperform it sometimes too. So yeah, kind of why I selected this location here. Yeah, if you guys didn't see that, we do have a chance of thunderstorms. You can see some of the lightning strikes already on the coast of western BC here. Haida Gwaii is right there. There's Juneau. Vancouver Island is here. There's Seattle and Portland there. So you can kind of see the lightning already going. You can kind of see this colder air that'll be moving over the region tomorrow. Another thing too, tomorrow morning is going to have some pretty heavy rain associated with it as well. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick here. So if we go to precipitation, reflectivity, let's back that up a little bit here. This is the 0-1Z, and you can kind of see the heavier precipitation will be moving in here early tomorrow morning. Look at this moving across Vancouver Island. Puget Sound as we go through tomorrow morning. That segment should be out here by the time the kids' soccer games start tomorrow. Last week we got pretty hammered, but you can see some pretty strong showers still going through some of the sound here as we go into the afternoon. Well, who just left that? Chris Bird, thank you very much for your generosity, sir. Much appreciated. Now, how do I click like on these things? What am I doing wrong here? I don't know. It won't let me click a heart on that. No, the Oregon coast. Oh, I shut that down, didn't I? Let's go to this. Let's look at the NAM here really quick too. I want to see the precipitation on the NAM. The NAM a lot of times doesn't show things as well as the HER does sometimes, but you can see that. That's a pretty strong frontal system. That's 2 a.m. we're looking at right here. And you can see that coming across Southwest BC, Vancouver Island, Northwest Washington coast. And yeah, this is going to wake some people up here. Some heavy rain in those segments moving across, coming down the Oregon coast. And then we got shower activity going on through tomorrow as well. So you could get a few lightning strikes on in through the afternoon tomorrow associated with that. But if we go ahead and look at surface wind, 80 meter wind speed, you can see it's going to get gusty on the Oregon coast, but it's nothing too crazy. The unusual winds here are across some of the Puget Sound. But Portland, like we saw in some of the recent HER runs, had some gusts into the 40s as well. But some of the central southern Puget Sound and the big stuff is up here across a lot of Whidbey Island, some of the San Juans and Bellingham, Everett out there as well. Yeah, I've seen some fantasy snow talk out in the extended, but it's nothing that it's got my attention just yet. High risk of debris flow out there. Trans-Canada Highway near Lytton. Interesting. Got 426 people in here. So we're stuck at 30 miles per hour now. And this is how it goes. Sometimes we'll go into peaks and lulls. We just hit 26 there for a second, but yeah. It's crazy because the live chat that I'm watching you guys chat on here, it's like 10 seconds delayed, and I can see the actual wind gusts come in here on the left. But the anemometer is, the ultrasonic anemometer is just outperforming the 3-cup just soundly today, and that's not always the case. Yeah, Paradise to get a shot of snow here as well. Yeah, there could be some heavy rain out there with some of this activity. So something else coming up here. So I want to address that a little bit. We talked about this storm that showed up in the European, and there is actually something to this. I kind of looked into this a little bit today. This was the 12Z, and if you have to look really close, but you can see there's a 70-mile-per-hour gust there in the control. This is not like a fantasy ensemble member here that we're cherry picking, but it actually showed up there in the control run. And I did a little digging on that here. And what is going on, I think, is, let me see if I can zoom in on that. Here's the Pacific Ocean. You're looking at Japan on the left. There's Washington State. There's Alaska. There's Hawaii. If you notice the precipitable water out here, it gets kind of active here as we go through the next week or so. So let's just go ahead and watch that. You can see the system rolling through tonight. Let me bring that down so we can see the dates up there. But as we go on into the future, you can kind of see there's going to be some convection out here and some increased moisture. And then the system that we're watching here is right there. So if we trace this backwards, you can see that precipitable water come all the way down to some of the subtropical moisture here. And this is probably a phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation moving across the Pacific. It's enhanced. The Madden-Julian oscillation is enhanced convection that kind of circles the planet between about every 30 to 60 days or so. And it kind of works in tandem with El Nino. But right now it looks like there is a Madden-Julian oscillation. It's kind of enhanced in this area. And I dug into this and you can kind of see it here as well. So this is the forecast from November 3rd to November 9th. You can kind of see the increase of that Madden-Julian oscillation there. And then up here, as we go November 10th through November 16th, you can kind of see the increase there in the Madden-Julian oscillation. This would be, I believe this is what we're looking at here is the increase in the moisture here. Is this outgoing long wave radiation? I'm not sure. I don't have, off the top of my head, I don't remember if that's outgoing long wave radiation here, but it just shows that there's more clouds and more moisture in this area. So that could be what's feeding the potential for a windstorm coming here in the next 9 to 10 days or so. And so remember that area right there, and we'll kind of play this back again. We'll scroll back, and you can kind of see this area out here. That's what we're talking about, the Madden-Julian oscillation, kind of an active phase there. Not too active here, but it is something, and it kind of leads to the development of this storm that rushes across the Pacific and slams into the Pacific Northwest. And if we look at it here on the surface pressure map, this is current. This is the system that's bringing us our strong winds. And you can see this kind of on a better scale here as we look at things widespread. You can look at Alaska there, there's BC, and there's Washington. You can really see how that pressure gradient is stacked up across western BC all the way down across western Washington. So that's the windstorm tonight and tomorrow morning. Then we bring another system, another shot of precip there, and then that storm develops off the coast of California. And then out here, you notice that development of, this is the 18Z. But the good thing is the 18Z looked like 12Z. So let's go back to the 12Z. Out here, if you see this bit of energy there, here it comes. And there goes that windstorm. And you can see the direct ties to probably some of that increased subtropical moisture down here with that Madden-Julian oscillation, that phase kind of traversing across the Pacific Ocean. So again, you can kind of see that low pressure moving up towards Washington there, and look at that thing just bomb out. You're talking about a 1,002 millibars, and then 12 hours later, it's 22 millibars lower and just right on the Washington coast. That would be such a dynamic storm, but it's so far out right now that they're really, there's not that much to it. We have so much time to look at it. It's just something fun to fantasize about at this point, but I just wanted to point that out. Chris Naughty, thank you for your generosity. Mammoth opening day was awesome. So yeah, you guys have some snow up there then, huh? Okay, yeah. You could see it on the GOES 18. I forgot to look at just how much you got. But yeah, it looks like some more is on its way potentially. I don't know. That storm is kind of a tricky one dropping down the coastline. Those cutoff lows can be a nightmare. Yeah, that low down there also. That's something else there as well. If somebody asked about Hawaii there. Here, let me back that up. But yeah, I can see that would be quite the storm off the coast there of Lihue and Kauai there. Maybe a Kona storm developing. And that looks like some Arctic air there way off into the extended. You want your fantasy Arctic air here. There it comes. You can see it move down across the Yukon, British Columbia there, and a little bit of troughing out in front of that huge Arctic high. That would be a pretty chilly solution there. And you can see that low all the way down across California and Nevada with Arctic air kind of sagging across the region. But purely fantasy at this point. Plenty of time to watch and worry about that. Welcome, everybody. Yes, a lot of chat coming through here, trying to catch up a little bit. You can see the last 10 minutes we died down a little bit, 26 mile per hour gust. If you guys are wondering what that is in the bottom left here, that's my Davis anemometer setup. It's got both the 3-cup and the ultrasonic anemometer in real time. And the ultrasonic is the one on the right and the one in the center, and the 3-cup is the one on the left. And this is that setup here. You can see the 3-cup and the ultrasonic. And I've got my Tempest and the AccuWeather one right there also, so I can compare those two versus each other also. I mean, it's not going to be like a prolonged thunderstorm for like any place. They'll be pretty progressive here, but you know, there's definitely a threat of thunderstorms with this setup coming in here. You can see the lightning there on the west coast of British Columbia as we speak. Let me update that and see if any more have happened. Yeah, you're getting a few lightning strikes out there. Nothing across western Washington or southwest BC yet, but as you can see, this frontal system is going to be moving through later tonight and tomorrow morning. So you guys are getting some good winds there, Whidbey Island. I mean, is Jonathan pulling here? Maybe you can tell us what kind of gusts he's getting right now. South Whidbey checking in. Sean is here. And close that one out. Let's see what so this is the most recent HRRR, the high resolution rapid refresh. If you guys are just joining, you can see some pretty big gusts Seattle northward, even around Tacoma and down towards SeaTac. Some of the HRRR runs are showing some pretty big gusts coming in through tomorrow morning also. And if we do this and we go down and look a little bit further south at Portland, you can also see there's some gusty winds for the North Willamette Valley. That's kind of an uptrend here. I mean, those are nothing to sneeze at. When you start gusting up towards 40 miles per hour and you got big trees around, that's pretty good. And even towards Astoria, I mean, you're talking 49 miles per hour here as well, down towards Seaside, some bigger gusts also. But it's nothing too incredible. You can clearly see the bigger gusts look like to be, you know, mainly northwest Portland up or Oregon through some of the coastal areas here. You know, Cape Disappointment, Ocean Shores is going to be windy. Hoquiam somewhere up to maybe upper 40s or whatnot. But you can see places like Bellingham and some of the coastal areas, maybe Whidbey Island, are actually a little bit windier than the Washington coast in this one. Whidbey Island checking in low to mid 40s right now. Very nice. We did have a 30 mile per hour gust here a little bit ago. Yeah, it's fun because after you get a weather station on your house for a while, even if you are in a wind sheltered area, you start to learn what wind gusts constitute big wind for your location. So you can kind of break it down that way. Not everybody's going to get 50 mile per hour gusts or 40 mile per hour gusts, but if you're in a wind sheltered area and you start hitting 25 and you kind of know what your past performance has been, then you understand you're dealing with a pretty windy period. And at the same time, like there's areas that are wind sheltered even near the Puget Sound, but when big windstorms come in, it doesn't take that much wind to cause some really nasty damage in those trees. Wind sheltered areas, when you get winds in there, you can really bring down, damaged trees and big branches and whatnot. Anacortes 25, gust to 30. It's calmed down a little bit here. Actually, let's take a look at this. So let's look at the herd. This is actually what? 7 o'clock, 8. So between 7 and 8, it called for 29. I'm pretty close to this area here, and we got 30. So that's pretty darn close. So you can see by 8 o'clock here, which is in about 19 minutes, you can see we should be getting some 50 mile per hour gusts here across some of the San Juans and even out towards Bellingham. Local surf, you guys surf on Whidbey Island? That is crazy. I mean, if you can go out tonight here, I forget what island. What is this one? Is this Lopez here? There'd be some pretty good waves probably here tomorrow, right now, actually going on. That reminds me of something else too. Let me look at, I want to look at the European wave here for a minute. Let's do, what are we looking at? Yes, let's bring in some wave action to Vancouver Island here. And you can kind of see if you look, if you peek really close in there, you can actually see some of that orange there on some of the, near the Whidbey Island and the San Juan area. So you're looking at some big waves out there. I mean, what you're talking about, what is this? Maximum individual wave height of 12, 14 feet. Those are pretty impressive. Gusting 7 miles per hour on the station in Mill Creek right now. Yeah. Get to know your wind speeds, what kind of area you are in. Are you in a wind sheltered area? Are you exposed? And it becomes fun because then, you know, like a 20 mile per hour gust can tell you that, hey, you're in a windy period. Thank you very much, David, for the kind words. Yeah, if you're in a wind exposed area, I mean, yeah, it's going to get windy tonight for sure. I mean, so we can look at, this is the most recent NAM. You can see some of these winds. This is 10 o'clock tonight here. And look at some of these southeasterly winds roaring across open water up the strait. So again, it kind of depends where you are. You can see some of these bigger winds trying to get in there. Coastal areas, higher terrain of the Olympic Mountains there, higher terrain of Vancouver Island. But you can see we've got wind sheltered areas out there also. Like a lot of communities in the foothills in Western Washington, you're in the valleys and stuff there. You don't really get big south winds. It's much more difficult to get it in there. Surf in Bellingham Bay. Yeah, there's probably some nice chop out there right now. Yeah, Eastern Washington's going to get windy also. Check it out as we roll through the NAM here. The North American model. You can see the winds as we go through. That's noon tomorrow. Some pretty big winds are going to be moving across. You can expect 50 plus mile per hour gusts. In fact, check it out on this. The yellow is 48. The next level there, orange, is 50. So pretty good gusts rolling across the area. Spokane might get up towards 50 miles per hour. 58 miles per hour is where they start to issue high wind warnings. When you expect 58 mile per hour gusts. And you could probably even get a high wind warning for less than that if you are early in the season and you've got a lot of leaves on trees or extenuating circumstances. Yeah, I'd love it. If people are out there surfing and stuff and you got big waves, I would love to see that footage. I'll play it on the show. So yeah, we've calmed down a bit here. We did have a 30 mile per hour gust earlier, 24 in the last 10 minutes. Yeah, I often wonder about that. Chris mentions the Columbus Day storm in 1962, and there's so many more people now. And a lot of the urban and suburban areas have less trees, and trees actually help to slow wind speed. It's just more friction. It slows down surface wind speeds. And we don't have that now. If you notice, a lot of areas, they completely remove a lot of the trees and then they leave a big stand. And then there's another area where the trees have been cut down, then they leave other big stands. If we get a Columbus Day storm, those stands are coming down because those trees are going to be exposed and they're by themselves. And then, you've got individual trees kind of left around houses versus larger forest areas that can actually slow down overall wind speed. So yeah, there's going to be some serious problems the next generational windstorm we get around here. There is going to be injuries. And, I don't want to say that people are going to die, but that's a likely scenario when we get another huge windstorm around here. And it will happen. It's a matter of fact. We just don't know when. Pretty large waves right now happening along Admiralty Inlet. Can we have a look at the winds through the Cascade Gaps tomorrow? They have highlighted blowing snow in the BC Pass. Oh, so when the front passes, yeah, so let's here. Let me back up here. We'll just do the NAM here. We'll go 80 meter wind speed. Yeah, so you can kind of see how we're doing southerly. And then as the front passes through, look at some of the gusty winds coming across the east slopes of the mountains here. Also, when the winds are going across eastern Washington. Let me bounce out a little bit. Let's do the European because that's not going to show British Columbia that well also. But yeah, you can kind of see how some of these interior waters up here in the Strait of Georgia, the coast, Puget Sound, kind of highlighted here as we go through tonight into tomorrow morning. Yeah, some of these models, I don't like it because, you can't tell. There's going to be some stronger winds in here as well. That kind of shows it a little bit better, but it's hard to see exactly where these areas are. But yeah, I can't wait to see tonight's European run. Some of these European runs have been having some interesting solutions. If you guys are just joining, I talked about... Let's back up to the 12Z run here. And I talked about this windstorm out here in the November 20th time frame. That's a pretty wicked storm. That's probably a 1 in 15 year storm if that were to occur. You can see that low moving across western Washington there. But it's still so far off into the future. It's pure fantasy, just purely a dream at this point. Yeah, you can get meso lows in setups like this. I mean, basically what's happening is the wind is passing over the Olympic Mountains, or it could happen on other portions of terrain as well. But when you do that, you can warm the air in certain areas and you kind of create a little bit of a low pressure system on the lee of that terrain, and you can really tighten the gradient in those areas. Let me see if I have something a little bit closer here. Let me do this. See if Wolf has anything about that lee low on here or not. No. I'm looking for something here. Stand by one. I don't have it available just yet, but yeah, we can get them here in the Puget Sound, especially. I mean, the Okanagan Valley is a cold air conduit for cold air as it moves down into eastern Washington. When we do have Arctic air, you get the high pressure pushing down across BC, and you get those outflow winds, but that's nothing like what we're looking at right now. Maybe off in the extended forecast or something, but we got a ways to go before we talk about Arctic air back into the region. Yeah, maybe I'll do a live stream later when the wind gets going outside the late tonight, but I don't know how many people will be up at midnight. And speaking of Arctic air, let me just play this through here. You can see way off into the future, November 22nd. Look at this Arctic air settling down over British Columbia. That could bring some lower elevation, so I don't know if that would bring it down to sea level. We'd have to look into that more, but a long way before that were to happen. You're looking at 12 days out there. Yeah, if you guys are just joining here, also, we've got Let's bring this back up. We got wind advisories, Eastern Washington, Puget Sound area, Washington coast, and the bigger winds are going to be up north. Bellingham, some of the models are showing 55 plus. Yeah, we really are overdue for a region-wide windstorm. It has been a while. Ten customers impacted. I wonder if that was from the wind. What are we looking at now? 13, 22 last end. Oh, the 3-cup anemometer went ahead of the ultrasonic. Winter storm warning across some of the higher terrain there as well. Don't forget about that. See if they changed that. It was 4,500 feet this morning. Yep, 4,500, 5,000. Still same thing. Gusty winds, heavy snow. Very nice. Yeah, each year, I mean, it could happen any year. Sometimes we get huge windstorms in back-to-back years. Or, I mean, we had the 1981 storm. The 1983 storm was really big. We had a huge storm in 93, a huge in 95. We had a big one in 99. We had the monster storm in 2006. And we have not had a region-wide storm since 2006. We're just like playing with fire at this point. So this is looking at the European, kind of the wider view. This is basically almost current winds right here. I think we can move that out to 8. Hey, they should be kicking up across the Northwest Interior. They did kick up here for a bit. We had 30 miles per hour about, what, half an hour ago? Somebody says losing some trees just now. I mean, we've had good individual windstorms, but nothing really groundbreaking. The one that came across some of the Southern Sound in 2019 was pretty good. SeaTac hit a 60 mile per hour gust. It's fairly rare to hit 60 at SeaTac. Thunderstorm risk has not changed for Vancouver Island. Negative. Still going. Still on. Yeah, we have yeah, it's tougher for us to get surprised by windstorms now, but you still can get those late breaking storms. But even when that does occur, you still are going to get a couple day heads up usually. Yeah, the 2006 storm was just vicious. We actually had a classic windstorm come up in 2014. That was getting close to a big region-wide storm actually. And I think that brought one of the strongest gusts to Portland also. Yeah, we'll talk about that one more time. I mentioned some of that stuff about the November 21st windstorm that was showing up in the fantasy runs there. And long way to go there, but it was kind of an interesting solution. Kind of makes a little bit of sense. There's something to it, but we just have to wait and see. And hold on one second. I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, had to get some water there. Sorry about that. Oh. All right, so what do we miss? Let's see any updates here on the satellite imagery. Any more lightning strikes going on? Did I kill that lightning overlay? Let's see. No, there's quite a bit of lightning just to the north of Vancouver Island there. Look at that. You guys see those flashes showing up? That's going to be coming down the coastline here. .23 miles per hour. Yeah, it's not too blustery out right now. You can kind of see how the wind calmed down quite a bit. 12 miles per hour. I know Garrett's got one of those Macho Man Slim Jims in his gym bag right now. Storm chasing sustenance. Got to have food when you're out chasing. Bellingham gust of 38. Not quite the 50 like the Hearst said, but that can be hit and miss. Oh, that ocean blob down there. Yeah, I think that's something wrong with the models. It was showing low dew points there too. There's something wrong with the model. Okay, so let's do that. Somebody asked about that Windstorm. I want to go over it one more time here. So actually, let's start from the end of it here. This is this morning's European run. And as you guys may have seen, there was a strong windstorm that burrowed right into the Washington coastline here, and it brought like 70 mile per hour winds to the interior, the Puget Sound, and some huge winds on the coastline. And so let's trace this moisture back and kind of see this atmospheric river pointed at Washington at hour 240 there. So let's trace that back and see where it comes from. And I'll show you why this is showing up in some of the model runs. So you can see it go all the way back here. And you can see it, kind of that increase here in that precipitable water out there. And some increased convection out there. And this is probably due to a phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation. It's something that propagates around the planet about, every 30 to 60 days. I mean, some may say, 30 to 45 days. But it's something that kind of crosses the entire globe near the equator, increased convection, and it can change the shape of the Rossby wave, and it changes how troughs and ridges interact in the jet stream. So coming from this area, increased convection there, and then you can kind of see that system there. So probably coming from some kind of an active phase in the Madden-Julian oscillation. The Madden-Julian oscillation also works the same way El Nino does. So when El Nino forms and it increases convection in certain places across the equatorial Pacific, that can mask the Madden-Julian oscillation. So why I say that as well, because you can kind of see this is the Madden-Julian oscillation. You can kind of see the increase in some of that convection here across near the dateline across the equatorial Pacific. And look at the forecast from November 10th through the 16th here. The Madden-Julian oscillation is more active here across some of the central Pacific as it propagates off to the east. And this would be from the 17th of November to the 23rd of November there, and you can kind of see it moving across Central America and pushing off towards the Atlantic Ocean. So this is probably what's going to kick off the best chance for a while here at a windstorm in the Pacific Northwest, this active phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation there. And it may be El Nino enhanced, it may not be. The Madden-Julian oscillation operates with or without El Nino. Sometimes they can enhance each other, and sometimes the El Nino can just mask the Madden-Julian oscillation. So you can kind of see that, increase that precipitable water there across the equatorial Pacific. And if we look at the pressure map here, this kind of shows it well. Actually, I might find a better one than that. Let's look a little bit further out. So you're looking at Japan at the left here. There's the state of Alaska. There's British Columbia and Washington. There goes our system. And you can really see that pressure gradient packed in the south side of this low moving through BC and the parent low right there across southern Alaska. But what we're talking about here is that next system that's going to come in the 10-day period. And you can, in the meantime, see that storm off the coast of California that kind of gets cut off there. Still big questions on what kind of impacts California is going to get out of that. But then we're watching, of course, we saw that increased convection down here. And you can kind of see some of that activity and that energy move up there and launch into the Pacific Northwest with that huge, nasty 980 millibar low that would just wreak havoc on the Pacific Northwest. So if we back that up, you can kind of see where that came from that increased convection here across some of the subtropics, probably associated with the Madden-Julian oscillation. So that's why there is something to the windstorm potential through the 10-day period. But right now, of course, it's still fantasy. Sometimes, you know, just because you have increased activity and tropical convection going on doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a windstorm. It just can help enhance, you know, that possibility. 48 in Friday Harbor, 45 now at Bellingham. Now it's starting to pick up there. We've got 23 in the last 10 minutes here. You should map all these on a flat earth map. Makes much more sense. What does a flat earth map look like? Yeah, I haven't looked at the 18Z European yet as far as California is concerned. Let's actually just look at that really quick here. Let's go to Oceanic and we'll go to Northeast. And we will take a look at what that storm looked like as far as the 12Z 18 run here. And I just want to look at this California one here, because this storm has got trouble written all over it because it's a pretty dynamic system out there off the coast. It's got some gusty winds. It's got, you know, heavy precipitation associated with it. And it's going to be so close to California, and it's probably going to spread some kind of activity back over the state. But how much will it do so is such a question. And if this thing just sets up a little bit further east, it's going to have big impacts and potentially prolonged impacts too if it's cut off and sitting there. But if it's a little bit further west, this is going to be a huge swing and miss. So you got to be, that's why I'm being very careful with my forecasting of this system. Actually, let's look at the GFS as well. This 0Z GFS is running. You see tonight's storm going into the Pacific Northwest. Then we get our next shot of precip there. And the GFS, you can see it wants to hold a lot of this precipitation out over the open ocean. That's as far out as it goes, 108 hours. Let's look at the 18Z. I've not looked at the 18Z or GFS yet as well. We're coming to some model agreement here, but I mean, it's still throwing some heavy rain at California here also. So this could end up being still a pretty dynamic system for some of the state, but it gets cut off. That low gets cut off. So it's going to be on the weakening stage here. And let's see if the GFS, that's something we should look at here too as well. Let's see if there's any sign of that system through the extended period. Let's back up a little bit here and we'll go to Pacific Ocean. We'll go to, actually, let's just go here. And we're just going to go to GFS and we'll pilfer this one. That's the 12Z. Let's go back to the 18Z so we have the full run to look at. And we'll go out towards 210. And you can kind of see how this atmospheric river is pointed in a much different direction here on the GFS. But let's just back up and see where that comes from. Yeah, you can see it there as well. Kind of the increase in that subtropical moisture out across the central Pacific near the dateline out there. So there is the potential for a windstorm here, but it's purely fantasy at this point. There's no telling where this is going to take aim. Playing this out a little bit here. This would be probably the same system here that the European was showing being very dynamic for the Pacific Northwest. Just typical frontal system on the GFS. Nothing too crazy there. So yeah, I mean, and maybe that, I don't know if maybe that was it or this atmospheric river, the next one was it. It might have been this one, but as you can see, pointed much further north into southeast Alaska here. So there's going to be some stormy potential here during this period, but we just got to wait and see. Somebody said the 18Z extended is very cold. Chris Bird, working in emergency management, that fantasy windstorm would mean working a few days of overtime for me. Yes, that would get things crazy around here. Thank you for your generosity there. I wonder why I can't click like. Yeah, so let's look at that. Let's look at that. I want to see that pressure here. Let's look at that Arctic high that's been showing up in some of the runs there also. So there goes that system off the coast of California. Cut off. Starts to weaken. Decent system into southeast Alaska there. And we do some ridge building here along the west coast. Yeah, I mean, look at that Arctic high across BC there. I mean, that's interesting, because at the same token, if we go, so we have to do this. Let me do the, that's not going to work. So I'll just kick off of that and we'll go back to the GFS. But if we do this and look at the European, we'll duplicate that and we'll do the European control as of 12Z. If you go off in the extended, you see that same Arctic high here. So there's got to be something to that with that Arctic air set up over British Columbia. Pretty interesting signal there, both showing up in the European and the GFS. Yeah, that's the only good thing about daylight savings, Garrett, is that the models come in an hour earlier, because it's crazy that I wake up in the morning to get the kids ready for school and it's already like totally light out, and it doesn't really need to be light out. And I don't know why that we make this time change. And then it's like super dark now in the afternoon, and soccer practice has to find fields with lights and all this good stuff. The 1985 November snowfall here in the Pacific Northwest was one of the most amazing weather things to ever happen here. That was such an epic week. And when that storm came rolling in, well, I forget what day exactly it was, the date. Was it the 21st? But when that storm came rolling in, I mean, it started snowing and it was sticking on the road immediately. You could see it blowing around and sticking immediately. So, you know, it was going to be a good one. Not necessarily. Chris asked about the evidence of windstorms in the Pacific Northwest are more common during the El Nino years. And I mean, you can still get big windstorms. There's not really much of a signal. Some studies have shown that it favors neutral years or transition years in the ocean, but you still get big peak wind gusts. And in fact, December El Ninos tend to have the strongest average high peak wind gust for Seattle. So yeah, I was out at Green River for the Inauguration Day storm in 1993, and that was completely wild. There were so many trees down, so many cars crushed. There were actually deaths also from falling trees in that storm. Yeah, we're calmed down. We've calmed down a little bit outside here, only 19 miles per hour in the last 10 minutes. I mean, a little bit gusty, but we had 30 earlier. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, Cam K, that's a good question. How does wind direction affect wind areas? It makes a big difference. Because as you know, Stampede Gap winds and Enumclaw, like the southerly winds that come across Enumclaw are just not as strong. I mean, you have terrain in the way and whatnot. And when you get the East Gap winds, you're much closer to the gap in the terrain there, and you're getting bigger winds that roll through there and across Snoqualmie Pass and North Bend and whatnot. And the southerly winds, different direction there. And of course, the east winds aren't going to reach out as far as across some of the Puget Sound area as well, because you get away from those gap openings in the terrain. So yeah, it depends on where you live. Some of the ridge tops there and these winter storms can get pretty rowdy as well. And then when you turn things westerly, you can reverse those gap winds and you get some really gusty winds on the east sides of the Cascades. That's why they have a lot of wind farms out there. "54 miles per hour at Whidbey Island." Nice. That is a big gust. Yeah, the November 1985. So yeah, I didn't realize that Fraser Valley was pretty much dry, but yeah, there was a small, subtle. In fact, let's go over that here really quick. There was subtle troughing over some of the southern Puget Sound there in 1985. It was an epic storm. Let me bounce out a little bit here so we can watch the Arctic high come down as well. You can see that big high pressure out over British Columbia, but you can see the subtle troughing there across Western Washington. That's what brought that snowfall. And the thing about that week in 1985, if you remember, if you're around the Seattle area, later on that week, we got hammered with another storm with like another 7.5 inch snowfall. And you can clearly see, look at this Arctic high there, and look at this pressure gradient, what that little trough down there, I almost said thermal trough, but the resultant troughing from that high pressure there, just a beautiful setup for very heavy snow across some of the Puget Sound. Yeah, Matt knows what he's talking about there with the GFS. It gets pretty low resolution there. Whidbey Island, roughly 10 to 15 miles northwest from me, and I only checking in with 8-mile-per-hour gusts. And I don't know, was anybody here in the chat that remembers January of 1989? I just have to ask here. Or February, sorry. Well, the end of January, I should say. Because if you like Arctic highs, 1989 takes the cake. I mean, look at this 1071 millibar. Just a ridiculous pressure gradient. Probably the most impressive windstorm I ever lived through in Seattle. I am not a radio operator. I've never tried it. I know people that do, but I just have never gotten into it. Well, we've had some good cold snaps back in the 30s here across Western Washington. 1916 was a notorious one. Yeah, SeaTac hit 7 degrees. I think that's the last time SeaTac hit 7 degrees was February 1989. That was my first winter in Whatcom County, 1989. So I can't remember the exact details of what was going on through the Fraser River, but as you can see here, it was pretty intense. Yeah, I just remember it snowing all day long in Seattle on February 1st. I mean, we had snow drifts in Seattle of 5 feet deep. If you can, I mean, believe it or not, I remember that. So it was crazy. Yeah, everything was shut down. If a storm like that hit today, it would just be so dramatic. I can't imagine. Seattle has never officially recorded negative temperatures. 1950, January 31st, it's gotten down to 0. I believe it actually got Kent off to the southeast recorded -10, though. Christmas storm was 1996. That was a really good one as well. We had a fairly robust, moist atmospheric river kind of running into an Arctic air mass. That was just a wild time. Yeah, 2008 December, we got down to 14 degrees or something, somewhere around that for Seattle. No, if there's trees on your leaves, that's what you need to watch out for. I mean, we're getting to the point though where we're getting later in the season to where those leaves might just come right off. But if you've got trees that are still on the branches, that can definitely act as a sail and definitely increases damage on the trees. Let's see if we got the new her running. Yeah, there it is, the 03. So as of this is 9 o'clock, 10, 9. So the her, we actually outdid the her a little bit there. But let's see when it starts to pick up here. So that's about what, 9, 10 o'clock, 33, 11, 36. So slowly increasing the overnight hours for SeaTac. But yeah, the her is still bullish on that 60 mile per hour gust for Bellingham. Yes, there was a tornado in the valley down there, 1969, December 12th. Probably the most photogenic tornado that you could imagine here in the Pacific Northwest. I think you can easily find it on the internet. Yeah, any snow that falls in Seattle is dramatic. This is true. Bronson talks about the summer of 2009 when Vancouver got to 34.4 degrees Celsius. What did Vancouver get in the 2021 heat wave? I forget. I know BC got absolutely decimated by that. Let me back up a little bit here. No, exposed areas across southwest BC definitely have some big gusts coming their way. And this one goes out to 15Z right now. So yeah, the her's still flopping back and forth pretty well. You can see it brought down the wind speeds for Seattle a little bit here. A microburst, that's when you get a bunch of colder air dropping down and, kind of hitting the ground and spreading outward. That's what's known as aviation as a microburst. Powerful winds that come down out of cumulonimbus clouds. They hit the ground and they spread outwards, and you've got this big burst of wind moving in all different directions. And if it happens near airports, it can really mess with planes, and it's very dangerous. That's why they have wind shear detection systems on all kinds of airports across the USA and wind shear detection systems on planes themselves now, because wind shear when you're near the ground is bad news and you want to avoid it. You start getting wind shear alerts and you immediately activate a go around, and you go around, wait for the wind shear to clear, and then you land, because if you're close to the ground and you get big wind shear, you don't have room for recovery. So that's the big deal with regards to microbursts. That's what took down the plane. I believe it was in the 80s there, Dallas, Fort Worth. The plane right ahead of them went in. The next plane behind them got caught in the microburst, and they did not have time to recover. So just another thing that makes aviation so extremely safe nowadays. We learn from our mistakes, and then they correct them. Vancouver got to 32.4 in 2021. I don't use that model that much. I mean, I've kind of been, I should probably look into it more, but I just kind of use the her and the NAM. I use the UW model sometimes too. 57 in downtown Port Townsend. Is that right? That is a wild gust. $59 in Port Townsend now. Yeah, Abbotsford, BC. Look at that, 42.9 Celsius in June 2021. What that heat wave was just ridiculous. Yeah, it kind of took down a little bit of that wind speed across SeaTac here on this latest turn. We'll see if that bounces back again. Yeah, we have wind advisories across a lot of the sound right now. Actually, the entire Puget Sound, as you can see, wind advisories are up. Bigger amounts towards Bellingham. But you could get some 50-mile-per-hour gusts down towards Tacoma and Olympia also. Maybe some mid-40s SeaTac area, gusty on the coastline. And Portland could be getting gusts up around 40 miles per hour as well. Eastern Washington, gusty winds also. You can see wind advisories are in effect there. Maybe a gust to 50 for Spokane. No wind at all yet in Snohomish. Yeah, you might be in a wind-sheltered area. Lying in bed at 3 a.m. and the room was 99. Yeah, I can still remember that. I mean, I remember going, it was 5 a.m. and the sun was rising. It was starting to get light outside and the cement was like extremely hot outside my house. Like it didn't even cool off from the previous day. It was just, it was intense. Sometimes the ferries will run. I don't know the cutoff for the ferries though. Does anybody know that off the top of their head? At what point do they cut off the ferry runs across like the San Juans? You can see what the winds are doing right now as we speak. Oh yeah, when they had the big fires up across British Columbia, those can create lightning strikes on their own. Death Valley 107 overnight low. That's kind of nuts. I was looking at this earlier as well. Yeah, we got some good wave action rolling in tomorrow on the coastline. Relaxes on Sunday some. Still pretty active though, going through at the early portion of the week. Must be some good wave watching out there tomorrow if anybody can get out there on the coast. For BC ferries, it's 50 knots cut off for sailings. Yeah, it looks like some ferry cancellations already going on. Power outages going up. Let's look at the thunderstorm activity out there. Hasn't been any strikes the last few loops. Let me look at let's just do the last 6, see if we see any lightning showing up. I don't see any lightning recently, but there's a chance for it through tomorrow. Problem is docking. Yeah, I can imagine you're getting buffeted by big winds. You don't want to be running into the ferry terminal. No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, the wind is going to die down by the time we go into the morning hours. It'll still be blustery during the day tomorrow, but the bigger wind should be happening overnight. And this isn't like a huge region-wide windstorm. I mean, this is a pretty good one, but it's not. This is something that we get each and every year. This is not something out of the ordinary. Yeah, air conditioning was a must during that June 2021 heat wave. Trying to scroll back through some of the chat here. Looks like we had a 24-mile-per-hour gust. Maybe we're going to pick things back up again here. Yeah, that August 2015 windstorm was pretty good too. I mean, 47 miles per hour at SeaTac. There was a pretty good amount of damage across the area from that storm. There were some higher winds than that across some of the area as well. But, I mean, all the leaves were on the trees for that storm. And we've discarded a lot of leaves here already. So we're going to be doing better than we would if this was early October for sure. Washington weather chasers in the house, getting breezy up there. Had a 30 mile per hour gust earlier. Yeah, it just happened. The furnace in my house was getting kind of old at that point too, and it was making a weird noise, and I was worried it was going to go out. But yeah, it wasn't kind of a big house here, and it wasn't keeping up that well, so we had to get a whole new heat pump. But no lightning strikes here recently. You got to go way out south of the Aleutian Islands to see any recent lightning strikes right now, but that'll change tomorrow. There'll be some lightning strikes across some of western BC and probably across some of Washington also. Is Tennessee going to get snow eventually someday, I think? A little bit out of my region there. And this is supposedly 10 or 9 p.m. here on the European, the windy app. You can see the big winds out over the water there. Somebody could probably ride, you know, I don't know, you can get a sailboat out there and you could probably get it over to the San Juans pretty quick from Whidbey Island there. Yeah, new heat pumps are awesome. I didn't go ductless. We just got a heat pump. I forgot what kind it was already, but it's much better. Now, the problem with El Nino, you guys, is just... The problem with El Nino is this is a difficult forecast as well, because if you look at, where's the anomalies here? I'm getting a little tired. So let's see, we'll go to Pacific. Look at how warm the Pacific Ocean is. Like the central North Pacific Ocean is just really warm. So in other years, this would be abnormally warm. And so it would change patterns, probably a little more predictable than what's coming in here, because this is going to, you know, throw some monkey wrench in things. How is this going to affect that gradient? How will this affect the Aleutian low? Is this going to power that subtropical jet into California all winter? Is it going to keep the Pacific Northwest warmer than normal? Because we're still kind of in a Pacific the PDO, Pacific Decadal Oscillation, is still kind of negative here, as you can kind of see the little bit of cooler water here off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, and very warm water here in the Northwest Pacific Ocean. So kind of PDO negative as we speak. It's really a weird setup. I keep expecting this to change as, you know, you kind of bring more of a persistent subtropical jet stream into the Pacific Ocean, and you kind of warm up the surface waters towards the Pacific Northwest. And sometimes it can lag El Nino by 3 to 4 months, but it's not really showing that many signs of it. Mitsubishi heat pumps all the way. I don't know what mine is, but yeah, this is throwing a monkey wrench in. You're looking at the global temperatures here, and it's just kind of... Let me look at global. You can see just how warm the oceans are. I mean, El Nino is going, and it will have some effect. Yeah, that's right. Payne Field to the Hawaiian Islands. That will be nice. You know, there's going to be a lot of people that have big swings and misses with their El Nino forecast this year. Let me just put it that way, because look at how warm the water is across the planet. And this is, you got to kind of take this with a grain of salt too. You got to always remember this fact. If we just go to sea surface temperature, you got to remember that, you know, although it's abnormally warm up here, it's still relatively cooler here. But you can kind of see the warmth there across the equatorial Pacific. So there is still going to be some El Nino effects. But how much of a monkey wrench is the rest of the planet being above average across much of the oceans going to change that gradient? And it'll change, you know, the entire flow of the jet stream here, potentially across a lot of the planet. Tokyo recorded its warmest November. Yeah, I mean, the PDO in the opposite phase can actually, it's kind of a rare occurrence, and it could keep our temperatures a little bit lower than they would be. Obviously, if it was PDO positive, then I would be very confident in above average winter here for the Pacific Northwest into early spring. Yeah, you're going to get rain from this front. Here, we'll look at that here now. Let's do this. Let's cancel out of that, and we'll go to precipitation, composite reflectivity, and we'll go all the way back here. So there's the latest, the 0-3 run. But look at that frontal system. We're going to get some of that gusty segments rolling through here on and through the morning. Probably going to wake people up with some heavy rain coming across the region. But yeah, you're going to get some rain out of this. There is some rain shadowing going on across some areas, but that frontal system's still pretty potent moving across the area. And then some shower activity going through the afternoon as well. All right, Tempest Weather Station on your Christmas list this year. Very nice. "25 miles per hour last 10 minutes. So you guys can see I've got my Davis. That's the ultrasonic on the right, and that's the 3 cup on the left. And the center is also the ultrasonic. Those are live wind readings on my station. And this is what my setup looks like. You can see I've got the Tempest there. I've got the AccuWeather one there. They're much lower locations. And I've got the 3 cup and the anemometer, the ultrasonic Davis at the top of the pole there. So those are the ones you're seeing reading, are these two right there on that one to the bottom left there. Okay, I'll be right back again, you guys. Stand by. Okay, back at it here. Still 25, last 10 minutes, it looks like. Okay, let's see. Catch up on the chat here. Yeah, I've seen 2 people mention that about Tokyo now. Gusts ramping up here in North Bellingham. So yeah, here goes our storm system. That's it. That's the parent low here. And then there's got low pressure moving through here. Tight pressure gradient across the area. Oh, look at that. We got another lightning strike right off the tip of Vancouver Island there. There's probably some seals that heard that thunder. 45.6 gust at your house. Where are you again now at West Coast weather? That Federal Way? Yeah, that was like the must. It had to have a view and it had to have a good wind run, and I was not going to settle for anything less. Those were my demands. They were non-negotiable. Yeah, barometer keeps going down. Oh, Admiralty Inlet near Green Bank. Yeah, it's a pretty good gust. Yeah, another lightning strike right there off the coast, Vancouver Island. You can see what wind gusts can be expected across your area. Kind of, this is what the National Weather Service put out today. So what do we got? 8:30 right now. So I want to look at the GFS again here. This is the 0Z. Let's update this. So you guys can see, I mean, going through tonight, this front's got packing a punch. There's going to be some heavy precipitation across the higher terrain as well, especially southwest facing areas that aren't rain shadowed. We got another, that's not a bad little low right off the coastline there. That'll pack a little bit of a punch there. Nothing too crazy. But that low moving down off the California coast really gets cut off. So it's just wasting a lot of its energy out over the ocean there. And this run doesn't even show. I guess there we go. Now we're starting to get some heavy precip in there as we go through what's Thursday night and a Friday. So that could still bring some interesting weather. But man, that thing gets cut off and you can really see that low just lose its punch here. Too bad. That had potential for a really strong storm. It still has potential there, but yeah. Capitol Forest area. Yeah, let's zoom in a little bit here. We'll get to Washington. That's where most of it's happening across Washington and British Columbia here tonight. So let's zoom in here a little bit. Go to wind gust swath. Yeah, you can get some gusts in the mid 40s, mid upper 40s there. But there are some sheltered areas out there as well. So know where you live. Check out Tacoma. There's 50 mile per hour gusts down there just south of Des Moines, just south of Federal Way there, 44 in Seattle. Ashley W just hit 26. Oh yeah, the GFS is just, it's just something to watch. It's not, get too caught up in that. Homebound traveler, loving your storm coverage. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much for the generosity. Yeah, I'm not too worried about the GFS looking off into the extended too much. Look at some of those storms moving into western BC, though, and southeast Alaska. My goodness. That's a pretty powerful frontal set. That would be a windy solution there potentially also. My computer just kicked on there for a second. I'm interested to see if the GFS shows that Arctic high sagging south again as well through the extended. European won't be running for another hour or so. Reflect the Sun gifted 5 Pacific Northwest Weather Watch memberships. Very nice. Thank you very much. Pay it forward. There you go. Thanks for all the kind words, everybody. Reflect the Sun. Thank you. I don't want to, I can't get into it too much right now, but the European is generally a little bit more accurate than the GFS, but sometimes the GFS does do better at times. West Coast weather power just flickered. National Falconers Association annual rendezvous that week. Cascade foothills, a lot of the Cascade foothills, probably you're not going to be gusting too much out there. I mean, maybe if you're on a ridgetop or whatnot, but a lot of areas out there, you got valleys to work with, and you don't generally get that windy with the south winds. So yeah, the wind is just basically the variability in the wind speed. The sustained wind, of course, is going to be the wind averaged over a longer duration. The wind gust, like with the Tempest, is averaged over 3 seconds. And like the Davis is 2.5 seconds. Some other anemometers are 2.5 or 3 seconds as well. Like an ASOS is generally a 5-second sample. But like a sustained wind might be a 5-minute or maybe a 1+ minute average, depending on your weather station. But it is interesting, though, looking, so let's do this. If we compare that GFS, you do see that Madden-Julian oscillation stuff on the GFS here, developing that storm. I believe this would be it here. And then it tracks it. Yep, that would be it. So it does. The GFS is kind of latched onto the storm now that the European showed in the 12Z. That's the same system there. That comes from this Madden-Julian oscillation increase in activity here across some of the date line. Nilo is in the house. Nilo is one of the ones who won one of the weather stations. He's in California. Yeah, Bellingham, you're looking at, I mean, some of the models, the HER was showing 60 miles per hour. Bellingham could be getting some 55 mile per hour gusts here tonight. But okay, I'm going to go over this one more time here. So I know some people saw this and you might've seen my post about big windstorm, and you can see it there. There's Washington, Japan, Hawaiian Islands, Alaska. The 12Z European showed this storm here. And if we trace that backwards, you can see it come from the subtropical moisture here, probably somewhere around the date line associated with probably Madden-Julian oscillation activity. You can kind of see that little bit of a trough here. That's where that comes from. And this is also backed up by the CFS forecast here. You can kind of see that increase in some of that tropical convection out there and some of that moisture associated with the Madden-Julian oscillation. And this propagates around the planet about every 30 to 60 days. And this is the equator. There's Africa, there's Indonesia, maritime continent. You've got South America there. So this will propagate from west to east around the planet here. And sometimes it's very muddled, especially during El Nino conditions. El Nino can kind of mask it because El Nino will put out increased tropical convection and across some of the equatorial regions as well. So it can kind of mask the Madden-Julian oscillation. But that windstorm showed up in the 12Z European was probably a product of that Madden-Julian oscillation, kind of the phase moving across the Pacific Ocean near the date line there. And then you can kind of see it as you go through November 17th to the 23rd. That moves across from Central America towards South America there, and then it weakens a bit and maybe starts to emerge here further across Africa as we go through the end of November, and then maybe propagating back across maybe some of the maritime continent. Who knows when you get this further, much further out, but you can see maybe it redeveloping here across some of the date line also way off into December here. But this is probably what spawned that storm on the 12Z European run here. So let's go back to that. There's the 12Z. And so, of course, the date line, we're looking down here, and you can kind of see this energy. There's a storm off the coast of California. That energy emerges there, comes across the Pacific, and slams the Washington coastline there. And the European's been throwing some pretty big windstorms towards the West Coast. Now, something that gives me a little bit more confidence in this overall is looking at the GFS tonight's run. So if we break that down, in fact, let's do this first because we'll do precipitable water. And we'll run through this. And you can kind of see that increase in that tropical convection out there that's probably going to give that energy for the system. And there it goes, the atmospheric river. But the GFS points it further north towards southeast Alaska there. That's that same energy, though, the European is kind of hinting at. So probably increasing confident in a 10-day time frame here for some kind of strong storm to impact. But this could be anywhere from flipping Yakutat, Alaska, all the way down towards Oregon. You just don't know right now, but it's something to watch. And then as we bounce back to surface pressure here, you'll clearly see this. We're going backwards now, and you can see that kind of result, you know, get its steam going here across some of the subtropics and make its way up towards southeast Alaska. Pretty potent storm going into southeast Alaska there. That's that same system that the European was showing on its 12Z run there also. Same stuff. So a little bit of confidence increasing and some kind of a system coming towards the West Coast. Down trees and power lines on Auburn Black Diamond Road. Interesting. Okay. Oh yeah, we can go out a little bit further in GFS. See if it keeps showing that Arctic high out there. Look at that Arctic high again. Nope, that's the 12Z European. Whoops. Fail. Does it show it? It does. It's coming there. You see it at the end of the run. There goes that storm. And then, yeah, I mean, there's high is there. The high is a little bit close. You need that thing to back up a little bit more. You want it just a hair off to the west a little bit further. Allow that Arctic air to come down. But that's still not bad. I mean, the models continue to show that. You can see it there, and you can see on the 12Z European that Arctic high there as well. So there's something to that also. Highway 18 past the hatchery. Don't be scared, be prepared. True. Yeah, hopefully you guys can check back every day. So hopefully maybe I'll talk about that Madden-Julian oscillation. I'll keep watching that storm here over the next few days as well. We'll see if that continues to trend or if the models just take it away completely, because forecasting the Madden-Julian oscillation it's just a recipe for failure also. Any more power? Oh yeah, look at that. We got some power outages going on here. And it actually does show this, you know. It shows. Is that the same? I wonder if that's the same one. That's somewhere out towards. But yeah, this is almost certainly wind related up here. You got some power outages going on up here. Arctic high means colder for the Pacific Northwest. Yes, and potentially stormier as well. Depends on how it comes in. There's a lot to work out for that. Could you talk more about the birth of a storm? So how would I describe it? I mean, if we take a look at one of these fantasy storms out here, I mean, basically, it's what a storm is just basically the difference in temperature across the planet, especially a mid-latitude cyclone. And sometimes a hurricane is just a culmination of heat that's kind of trapped beneath a ridge. And so, again, it's based on temperature. And so if we look off into the extended, you know, that's why you have to look at everything as a three-dimensional atmosphere also, because when you're looking at, if we look at the height, so basically you're looking at temperatures at 18,000 feet here, you can see that if we go out into the European run, the 12Z, you can still see that polar lobe associated with that windstorm here. So you can kind of see that pressure grade, or the temperature gradient, I should say, there at 18,000 feet here. So basically you're just looking at colder air during the fall months starts to gather across the northern hemisphere. And yeah, then you get the polar vortex going and you start to get those mid-latitude cyclones because the difference between the subtropics and the northern hemisphere starts to increase. And we can actually look at that in a little bit better way here. Let's go to northern hemisphere. Now we're looking at the North Pole. And yeah, so basically you're cooling things down across the northern hemisphere, and things cool down across over water areas and ocean areas much less quickly. So you've got some nice gradients that are going to set up, and you can kind of see these move around and ebb and flow, and these areas of cold air will break off and they'll move south across some of the lower 48, or they'll move out over the Pacific Ocean. As you can see with that one, the California storm is there. You can see that polar lobe kind of drop down there. I like to think of it as more a storm organizes. You know, it doesn't, it's something that, you know, it's a product of difference in temperature across the planet. It's the best way to kind of describe it. Yeah, pressure and temperature are very closely related. So when you bring very cold air down, like when we bring that, for example, if this Arctic high comes down out of BC, this acts as a wedge, and this pushes air up in front of it. And that's why the trough is a product actually of this Arctic high. This troughing over the Pacific Northwest would be a product of that Arctic high. So this cold air here is cold and dense, and so it's higher pressure. That makes sense? Hopefully it does. Once I get, I'm a little bit tired right now, but once I get my thoughts together and if I organize things a little better, I can explain it probably better. I'll have to do that in a video at some point as well. Yeah, this is the closest thing you can get to a non-flat Earth map here when you're looking at a screen. Everything's going to be flat. Organizes, not orientizes, sorry, organizes. So how would I do that? How would I explain that? Let's see. So we're going to look at the European deterministic here, and we'll look at the stratosphere. This is another way to look at it too. Like you're looking at tropopause temperature. And so you can see the height of the atmosphere is much lower across the northern hemisphere. You can see you got the lower 48 here. There's Hawaii. There's Japan over here. You're talking about Africa over here. You got Europe. And if you put this into motion, you can really see how that cold air moves around the northern hemisphere. And you can imagine it just as you could imagine this kind of like, if you could just grab a globe and you could put like a liquid on it and make the liquid on the top colder and kind of spin it. You can imagine these Rossby waves kind of spinning around, and you're heating the equator portion of that globe. And it's a little bit warmer there. And you can kind of see these would be interacting. And when you get these polar lobes interacting with this warmer air, you're going to have a tighter pressure gradient there. So there's going to be a stronger jet stream in this vicinity across Japan. And as we go off into the extended, let me back this up. Let's go to the 12Z so I can go a little bit further, because we'll be able to see that storm, that fantasy storm form here as well. But you can see this polar lobe swinging here across the area, and then we get this powerful storm there. It's associated with this polar lobe here, and you've got some subtropical air in that as well. So that's a nice pressure gradient. That's why that storm would be so potent moving into the Pacific Northwest right there, if that makes sense. But this gives a really nice picture across the northern hemisphere. We're cooling things down. The sun's rays are much less direct. They are now south of the equator. They're starting to warm up the southern hemisphere now. And so, you know, our nights are very long. Things cool down quite quickly here, and it's still fairly warm across some of the equatorial regions in November. 46 mile per hour gust again. You can see it's 23 in my last 10 minutes here. Still hasn't picked up too much. We did get a 30 mile per hour gust though earlier. Yes, big temperature gradient to fuel cyclogenesis. Absolutely. And this should probably show up really well. Watch this California storm. And this is the problem with the forecast in the California storm. You can clearly see this polar lobe swing through, and it's just like you're on your own now. And it's just kind of spinning there, and it eventually kind of modifies. Once it gets cut off, you know, it starts modifying pretty quickly. Or once it goes into the southern latitudes, it starts to modify pretty quickly there. So it's going to lose some of its punch. And once it ejects through, if it loses a lot of its punch, it's not going to be that dynamic of a storm as it looked like it may be a little bit earlier in the forecast period here. You know, a few days ago, it looked like it was going to be a pretty dynamic storm. And it still could be, but there's some issues with that just getting completely cut off. As you can see, again, kind of moving down off the coast of California there and just becoming cut off. And we try to build a ridge in here in the meantime, and then we get active again maybe as we go through the following weekend once more. It's kind of interesting here too. You can actually see this Rossby wave dropping off this cutoff low. That's what's known as a Kona low here, Hawaii. If you ever spend any time in Hawaii, you hear about these Kona lows there. That's what happens. You drop off some colder air over the relatively warm Pacific Ocean and can create quite a dynamic storm for the Hawaiian Islands. Farm animals hate snow and cold but love global warming. You might like the global warming until all of a sudden we've got mosquitoes much longer through the season, or the forests are starting to dry out a lot. But anyway, I digress. 50 mile per hour gust on the weather station, the west side of Camano Island. Very nice. Yeah, it is picking up there, isn't it? And this is 9 p.m. as we speak. So this is what the wind should look like. And you can see why they're roaring over Whidbey Island and some of the San Juans there. Thanks for all the kind words out there. I see John F. Kennedy is in the chat. Got 25 mile per hour gusts showing up there. A little breezy out there. That's starting to pick it up. Taking the leaves off the trees. .41 at Bellingham. West Lake Stevens, some flickering of the power. Get your work saved quickly. Let's see what the latest now. I keep waiting for that ice age they're promised in the 70s. You mean Time Magazine promised in the 70s, not the scientists. Don't believe the media. Listen to the scientists. Mid-40s for Seattle coming up here. Let's see. Let's do this. Is Boeing Field available on here? I can't remember if it is. There it is. Look at 47 on the recent NAM there, Boeing Field, Washington, about 4 a.m. That'll wake some people up there on some of the hills around. Shout out to the dog Basil. There's a Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Shout out to the dog named Basil. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of weather models we develop on through the next 100 years and just how good our forecasting can get. I wish I could live another couple 100 years to watch how good forecasting gets and just to see what kind of storms would hit the Pacific Northwest. Got to eat my broccoli so I can live to be 110 or something. See what the latest HRRR has for Bellingham. Look at that. Still saying 60 mile per hour gusts coming in. I heard that in Iceland. You got some earthquakes going on. The magma's moving around. Well, the guy that started the Weather Channel isn't a scientist, thankfully. Everett 0Z showing 52. Here's Everett. The latest HRRR for Everett, the high resolution rapid refresh, what, 54 miles per hour. I wish. Yeah, you're gonna get, the storm is gonna come for California down there, but it's not. It's a tricky forecast because watch what's happening here. So this is the storm. Here it goes. It's starting to organize here off the west coast, and you can see the storm. It's a pretty strong one off the coast, but it's just far enough away. If it's like just totally torturing forecasters in California, because if this sets up just a hair more east, it's going to really bring some big impacts. But if it hangs back, it's going to be bringing big bands of precipitation just off the coastline here. So it's a really tough situation for forecasters. I'm trying to relay that in some of my forecasting here. It's really a difficult. I mean, look at this 987 millibar low here on the recent run. And actually, let's look at this. Let's kind of see what this is bringing. It does bring precipitation into the state of California, though. This one is kind of flipping back towards a little bit more of an active scenario here. That's a lot of rain for Southern California starting to show up. These are 3-hour chunks I'm scrolling back and forth here on. So yeah, this is going to be a really difficult forecast right up into the event. As you can see, it hits Northern California. Then it starts to spin through again here as we go through Wednesday night and bring some precipitation. Why don't I just, I'm just going to zoom in on this a little bit here. Yeah, you can see it's bringing some pretty good precipitation amounts to some of California here. So this is going to be a really tricky forecast, man. Tonasket, Washington. I forget where that is. Where is Tonasket? What location? Yeah, that drought out there in Hawaii does not look good. In fact, I was actually going to check that out again. Let's do that. Let's go to. Yeah, there's a lot. There's extreme drought now over there in Lahaina. And a lot of the islands are in drought conditions right now. Not good. I have not looked to see if there's relief. There is a Kona storm possibly coming, so maybe that will help out, but you need more prolonged rainfall. Corey Slater asking about that windstorm coming up. I talked about that a little bit of length here coming up. I have some confidence in a strong storm approaching the west coast, somewhere between South Alaska and down towards Oregon. But that's really all that it is right now. It's just some confidence increased stormy pattern in that time frame. The European and the GFS both show a strong storm at that time frame. North of Omak. So, I mean, we've got some Arctic air possibly coming towards the end of November. That's going to be something fun to look forward to. That always gets the channel going crazy. Yeah, my barometer's been just kind of falling slowly. We're not going to get huge pressure drops with this system moving in. It's just that tightening of the gradient that will bring the big winds. And man, I wish they would work on the GFS or change it to some kind of different ensemble, because I mean, I look at this and I wish that we would get better. It's actually not doing too bad right now, but I mean, the days leading up to this event on the GFS, the ensemble members here, and it now does show the 45, mid 40s for Seattle. But in the days leading up to this, it was just, it's a pathetic tool to use, and I don't even know why they bother really too much. The European does quite a bit better. And you can see 48 miles per hour was the 18Z European for SeaTac. Yeah, this rain, we definitely needed it. Starting to get breezy in South Everett. Oh, the gem is more exciting for cold air prospects. Yeah, you know, the European and the GFS show that cold air up there. So it's definitely something I'll be watching over the next few days. Calm and Sammamish. Is that BLI? Yeah, so Bellingham 45 so far. Yeah, my lawn got green again after the last few weeks. I don't know the difference really between the GFS and that version. I'm not sure. Eight power outages on Whidbey Island. Definitely the first decent storm of the season. Oh, I was going to look at this too. Let's go to the GFS 0Z and just kind of see what it shows for wind gust swath here as well. If I can click on the GFS. Yeah, the GFS is kind of worthless. This resolution is not going to be good enough to pick up on a lot of that. It does show some of the stronger winds across eastern Washington, 45 for Seattle. Turkey Day coming up. Yeah, the year went by really quickly. Yeah, that's why the pressure gradient is so strong too. You see that 30.24 pressure there down in our Northern California, and yeah, but the GFS has that windstorm through the future further north. I'm going to close some of these out a little bit here. In fact, let's do this. Let's duplicate that and let's put the GFS. Let's take a look at that extended forecast. There goes that system off the coast of California. You can kind of see how it just gets cut off there, just like dropping an ice cube into a deep fryer. And then you go on to the extended, and here would be that storm system there. Where is it? It's right about here. It's got to be this. Yeah, that storm system there. It doesn't show the Kona low as much, though. There's some disagreement between the GFS and the European and that Kona low. If we go back to the European, You'll see this Rossby wave come through here and kind of drop that cutoff low just north of the Hawaiian Islands. Maybe that can bring some precipitation to Hawaii there. But this is what would bring that strong windstorm here through the later period on the European. Something to watch. This is the Davis. This is my Davis anemometer here. So I see somebody asking, I see people asking about that. This is what's mounted on my home. I have the Tempest here. I have the AccuWeather one there, as you can see. And then we have the Davis 3 Cup and the Davis Ultrasonic at the very top, excuse me, of this guy wire system here. And these are about 32 feet off my roof. The one on the right there that you see, that is the ultrasonic at the top. The one on the left is the 3 Cup. And the one in the center is the ultrasonic also. We did have a 30-mile-per-hour gust here, what about an hour and a half ago or something to that effect? Yeah, the drought situation is going to get better here for Western Washington, for sure. It's just a matter of time. Like, this is just a temporary thing now. And if we go, actually, let me jump back out here. You can clearly see here, it's going to be drought improving. Drought remains to some extent, but improves. Drought removal is likely for a lot of Western Washington and Oregon also, but drought persists across some of the Cascades, East Slopes. But there's time to work on that. We're not in dire straits right now. It's just something that we can improve over the next few months. We don't have to worry about fire danger anymore for the most part, so we have some time to fix the drought conditions. Big gust. Where are you, David Jones? Yeah, I don't mess around here. That's like I was saying earlier in our chat or the live stream here. One of the two of my demands about buying a house where it had to have a view and it had to have an exceptional wind run. So I can see a lot of the Puget Sound. I can see the Olympic Mountains. I can see Tacoma. I can see Redondo. Part of what is it, Dash Point down there. I can see Vashon Island. So the wind run is really nice here. Yeah, I don't know if the Mariners are going to sign him, but who knows? Maybe it'll happen. The 04 Her is running as we speak. Let me update that. Big gust coming here for, what is this, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11, 12. Still showing that 60-mile-per-hour gust for Bellingham. Looks like it's settled on 44 or 45 for SeaTac or so. I don't call it a windstorm until I hit 39 miles per hour. And we have not hit that yet this season. 32 is the highest we got. So as you can see, Spokane, you're probably going to be peaking somewhere around noon or so, maybe early afternoon for Spokane. I lose power once in a while here. Normandy Park is the land of tall trees. There's some big monster trees out here, and when branches start coming down, you can lose power. It usually doesn't last for too long, but it does happen. But if we look back at the precipitation, let's do this here really quick. You guys can see that frontal system coming through. That's pretty early tomorrow morning, so that's going to be kind of blustery with that also. And there could be a thunderstorm embedded in there. There could be a thunderstorm tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, heads up for that as well. Yeah, I wouldn't put this up. I wouldn't want this thing crash. It's taller than it even looks here. These are huge 8-foot sections. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. And it crazily enough, there's another full section that I did not extend because it just looked absolutely ridiculous. And I set this up by myself, and it took me it took me probably 5 hours actually to center this pole perfectly and to get the guy wires. Cause I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to set up a pole like this with guy wires. It's extremely difficult. You have to set up each individual one. And if one of them is off or pulling too much, it messes up the whole pole and it starts to buckle it and stuff. So this took a while. No, I haven't checked the UW. It didn't seem to be doing very well. I didn't like what I was seeing on that. Let me look here. Where did I put it? There it is. We'll look at the high res one from this morning here real quick. But like if we do, actually let's bounce back out a little bit further. Let's do Puget Sound. We'll do Western Washington instead. Yeah, we got to do wind gust too. That will help. But so, for example, so we're looking at Friday morning here. If we go on into currently, this is 8, 9. I guess it does show 45 knots up there, Bellingham. So that's not doing too bad. But you clearly see it didn't show anything. It didn't show that 25 knot gust down here, for example, at my house. It's actually 26 knots. So, I mean, it does show the higher winds across some of the waters, but I think it's underdoing it a little bit for some areas. Because it's not showing anything like a 50-mile-per-hour gust across some of Seattle. It's not showing too big of winds there forever. I guess it's showing 45 over the water. I don't know. It looks like it's underdoing things a little bit. Because if you're in Tacoma, you'd see the 25 knots is probably going to be your peak, for example. So anyway. Yeah, the 0Z run is not going yet. The high resolution 0Z run is not running yet. Yeah, so SeaTac is about 33 feet. You want to get about 33 feet above the ground surface for an official wind reading. And if you take into account, I'm kind of on a hill, which gives me the view. So if you take into account the north or the northeast portion of my property, it's probably about 35, 36 feet above that. More power outages incoming. Yep, thanks for joining, Chris. Thanks for everybody who stopped by. Yeah, I should probably wrap it up here. I mean, it's getting a little bit late, and I got to, like, do some things before I don't know. I might stay up and watch some of the wind roll in here, but I don't know how late I'll stay up. I might just try to wake up early or let the wind wake me up. 56 mile per hour gust at Whidbey. Impressive. Windy and raining hard in Vancouver. El Nino, no, it shouldn't be affecting. That's kind of a separate. El Nino won't be really affected too much by climate change. I mean, some of the effects of El Nino could be affected by it, but we haven't noticed any kind of change in El Nino versus La Nina itself. Not that I've heard of anyway. Thanks for all the kind words, you guys. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys, and we will... I got to do a video tomorrow morning. Also, I'll probably wake up early. I'll let the wind wake me up. I'm sure if a 40-mile-per-hour gust kind of buffets the house pretty good here, so it'll probably wake me up. But I'm going to sign off here. Thanks to everybody for joining the chat. Check back with tomorrow's video. Hope you guys are having a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.